Welcome everyone to number 87 of the Tesla Beat podcast. We have our regulars, Joe Valentine's, Joe Valentine, Hans C. Nielsen, and FutureAza Brian. How's it going, everyone?
Great.
Another dull week in the
Yeah.
Tesla world, huh?
Yeah, nothing
Off,
happening out here.
it's just so quiet. It's really hard to find stories.
I mean, you just open the news, type in Elon's name, you'll find something. I'm pretty
You
sure.
don't have to open it. It's just there.
Or more importantly, don't open the news. Turn on X, right? All right. Well, let's get into it. So we obviously have a lot of love for you guys this week. Thank you for tuning in. Happy Valentine's Day. Hopefully you guys can get out there and celebrate maybe with someone special. Otherwise, enjoy some a good cold brew or something. All right. Well, Tesla stock definitely dropped a lot this past week, and then it actually recovered. I think it dropped to a low of 330, but it bounced back up to 352 from about 414, I believe, last week. Maybe it was a little bit lower, but yeah. So a lot of volatility in the stock, but nothing new. If you've been following Tesla stock for a long time, there's just weeks that can move 20-30% or even more. But yeah. All right, Joe, I'll pass this one to you.
Yeah, actually, this goes to Brian because he's the one who saw it before I did.
Well, when you see, if you want to make a small robot, you take a daddy robot and a mommy robot, and they have to love each other very much. No, it's just fun. It's just fun that the Optimus team gets to have a little fun on Valentine's.
Yeah, Optimus is preparing for a date. So somebody zoomed in on the hand. I'm circling this with my mouse. You guys can't see it, but yeah, like that new hand is looking pretty sweet. The arm for the actuators right there on the on his right hand side. So I'm pretty sure that Dr. Know-It-All and Scott Walter are gonna take this apart and look at it, but it's pretty awesome what bathroom is this? This is like a really nice bathroom, but it's pretty awesome that they were able to, that they have fun and things like that at this site.
Yeah, did they take it back to the hotel for testing?
Gosh. All right, next slide. We're getting into a little weird place. All right. So Viva La Mexico. FSD is now available in Mexico for the first time ever. I thought that this was really big news, really exciting, because I think this is like one of the first. Well, like I said, we have it here in the U.S. and so Canada has it. So pretty much now that you have Mexico on board, now it's full, all of North America. But Mexico has its different driving patterns. Roads are a lot different down there, and especially in some of those cities. So I actually would be, if I had the time, I would love to go into Mexico to get some great footage just to see how it handles through the cities and whatnot. But yeah, so FSD continues to expand, and our friends, the Tesla owners of Mexico, posted a couple videos out there. So really happy for them.
It's really awesome. They had one where I think it was actually a Cybertruck in Mexico that went around a truck on the side of the road with its hazards on or whatever. It just drove around it, and he was just all amazed. Exclamations in Espanol. It was pretty awesome.
So the thing that's crazy is, sure, we're going to unlock a little bit of revenue, a little bit of new revenue and locked revenue. That's great, I suppose, but it's not very big in the grand scheme of things. Guys, why do we have this giant Cortex cluster for training when it's so close to solved? Well, one answer is you have to train it for different markets. There's different driving styles in different countries, and if it tried to behave like a mild-mannered Pacific Northwester in Mexico or even in New York City, it would not be good. It would be unsafe. It would be dangerous. So I think what we're going to see is Cortex will be assigned to each market as it is relevant to get it trained and ready to go. So yeah, this is something that I don't know if it could have happened a year or two ago to get it even up to the current version as of then. But I think this is very exciting.
Joe, this one's to you, man.
Yeah, this is pretty awesome. So every year there's a King of the Hammers event. So this is a extreme off-roading event, and Tesla themselves brought out several Cybertrucks and let a lot of those guys just rip and run in them so they could experience the Cybertruck. And that's pretty awesome that they even did that, that they even had the wherewithal to. I'm pretty sure Ben and his team had something to do with that, since they're always out there, and they broke the first Cybertruck out there. So so it was pretty awesome to have those guys, especially, a lot of those extreme off-roading guys, and they look at the Cybertruck as a joke. And so them experiencing it and getting to enjoy it and realizing that it's capable, and it's pretty capable for an off-road vehicle, for people who I know who actually off-road and stuff, like they're pretty impressed with it. So this was another one of those things that, the people butts and seats type of thing, and people need to experience it and get out there. So it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, what I personally love about that is I think there's certain events that are really well known in the, for ice truckers and, other people. And King of Hammers in California is really well known for just trucking and being literally out, going off-roading in the sand dunes. And so it was really cool to see this amount of trucks. Here, one slide too happy here. Probably a good 15, 20 trucks out there. Just again showcasing what electric vehicles can do. So they did a light show out there that was really cool. I think they put that on display. But more and more of these events, I think hopefully maybe down in Baja at some point too. But it's important that Tesla shows up to these events. At least the fans have always shown up to these type of events, but it's important to showcase again what Teslas can do, and just share, how great these vehicles are. So, Yesla, big things happening.
Popping.
So
big things.
Go ahead, Joe. Oh, big things popping. Well, but yeah, so a lot of big things happening. I think I see a lot of reservation holders that have ordered or have ordered their Model Y. They're starting to get updates late February, early March. So they're starting to pump these out. I personally, so I've been past the Fremont factory a couple times now. I have not seen any trucks. Again, I've only been there a couple of times that have left with the Model Y. So I don't know if they're necessarily maybe prioritizing vehicles that were ordered in this area, or how many they're actually starting to produce off the line. But I have not been seeing trucks that have been leaving with the new Model Y on them. So that's just something I personally haven't seen. I think Shanghai, there's been some photos online about that, but yeah.
I think they keep it pretty tight to the vest. It looks like deliveries aren't supposed to happen until this time next month is what a lot of people are screenshotting from their devices. So I think you're probably going to start to see the trucks probably at the beginning of next month heading out. I don't think they're really going to do anything until then.
I think it was Bradford Ferguson who shared his update from his app, and I think it said March 4th, which is, coming up in a couple weeks. So here's the exciting thing. We've been told there's going to be a new model coming in the first half of the year. We've been told that it's going to be built on the same lines as the 3 and or Y. But the question is, are they going to take the whole line down again? Or is that what they just did? Did they just set the line for both this vehicle and whatever that one will be? Because that would be a very wise use of time. And that is my current theory, is that that's what's going to happen.
So while we're on that topic, Brian, I actually have a question for you. One of the schemes that I've been thinking about recently is the possibility that, Franz mentioned that we're going to have cybercabs specifically in the Jay Leno interview in June in Austin. And if that's going to be the case, maybe they're just going to use the existing engineering fleet that they have, but there's also a chance that they're going to have to roll out new models. And so one of the possibilities that I was considering is that they would actually manufacture a few cybercabs on existing lines, maybe in the tens of units per month, or at some point hundreds of units per month, and just kind of float them on down that line using existing processes, existing methods, without going to the full unboxed assembly, and do that throughout the whole period that they're doing this toes in the water phase that Elon talked about on the conference call, where we're developing a Tesla fleet. It's completely Tesla owned and operated. We're going to do all the validation testing with all the municipalities that need it in order to get ready before we're ready to really start mass producing these vehicles. Is that something that you think is a reasonable possibility for what one of these new vehicles that we're going to see starting the first half of this year is?
So let's talk about the Cybercab first. Could they build it on the existing line? In theory, sure. But the design philosophy is so different that it doesn't make sense. And that's added to the fact that I've heard that from sources in Texas that there is actually already a Cybercab line. Now, the second part to that is, well, how many do we think they're going to roll out by summer? Are we talking 100? Because if it's 100, I mean, they've already built 20, building another 80, not that hard. Is it going to be hundreds, maybe even 1,000? At that point, you're talking about serious volume. But even if you're only making 10 a day, it only takes 3 months to get you to 1,000. So they don't need tremendous volume. If it was a limited run vehicle, look at GM. They're making their is it their Celestiq? Yes, that is being manufactured in very low volume. They're just making it in their prototype shop because it doesn't make sense to put it on a line because it's sufficiently different from anything else they have. But for the Model 2 or Model Q, whatever we'd like to call it, the intermediate vehicle, I think that's going to be similar enough to have enough shared parts with the existing 3 and Y and still be built on the same philosophy. The 3s and Ys are still 12 volts instead of 48, and they're still unibody. So I think while they could do it, I think their plan is to not do it, is to use the actual unbox process, because it's just so much easier to do it that way, and they've started building the line for it.
Great inside knowledge from the man himself.
I tell you, man, I follow this stuff.
All right, Joe.
Yeah, this is so yeah, there's no love in Delaware. But so this appeal is happening, and I mean, it's a good thing even the governor's on board apparently, which is pretty awesome. But new in February, we have Tesla and Levine have appealed, which is the governor, the ruling to Delaware Supreme Court for another chance to overturn the decision. I think once you have the governor involved, you really kind of realize like the judge is just really out of pocket going against the investors. And this is our company as much as it's Elon's. And it's just unfair that she decided to go with her feelings over what she should have done is went by our judgment. And I think that's becoming more and more apparent that it was a wrong thing to do. But when you're an activist, I guess you don't think clearly about these things.
Forget about what we wanted. Just look at precedent. The precedent doesn't follow her ruling. And when you say, well, we should keep emotion out of it, some people will hear that and say, well, that's just our opinion. No. If you read the decision, it starts with her saying, no one should be paid this much. Honey, that's your opinion. I get it. You're a low level judge, a medium level judge. You're not making millions nor billions of dollars, but I assure you, the corporations doing business in Delaware do make millionaires and billionaires all the time. I think the fact that she loaded it with emotional language right out of the gate opens the door for appeal right there, because if that's the basis of your thesis, the whole thing is fundamentally flawed and you need to move past it. Delaware is as much a company as it is a state, and the governor is the CEO, and he's looking at it going, hey, we're losing the one thing that we have going for us, which is that we are a corporate safe haven. So don't make us the no longer sanctuary state for big business. We need to keep this. And I'm confident. I've always been confident that they would win on appeal, because they know which side their bread is buttered on.
Yeah, this was always going to appeal ever since the initial ruling. So this was guaranteed. And it's absolutely not surprising that the governor is getting involved, because, to everyone's point, Delaware makes a lot of money off of their corporate business that they run. And it's really against the interests of the state for them to have these high profile cases where companies not only like Tesla are leaving the state, but we've had a number of other high profile departures from Delaware recently as well. They still have new business that's coming in, but this is something that they want to get ahead of. The new governor has been very vocal about this, and then, to Brian's point, the the language, I think she's left a lot of opportunity for this appeal to be successful in the way she worded her ruling. And the thing that I always felt like was kind of hilarious in the whole process is that she's very much against Elon being paid as a percentage of the returns that he creates for his investors, but she's very much for the plaintiff's lawyers being able to be paid based on a percentage of the value that they save for shareholders.
So ridiculous. And if the attorneys have to be paid, that turns into real dollars. Those shares, if they give them money, it's real money. If they give them shares, they would be liquidated immediately, which would hurt shareholders. So in anyhow you slice it, that award only hurts shareholders. And it's just dumb to a degree that I really struggle to understand.
Yeah, I mean, I've been obviously keeping up with the case, but not as probably in depth as some of you and Alexandra and even Amy, who's obviously involved in a lawsuit. But one thing I can tell you is that we all know that it's kind of like if you drive around California a little bit, the people that know, you'll start to see some of these license plates that say Montana, right? And long story short, people go and they essentially they get like a PO box or an address, and they incorporate or get a temporary address. But long story short, there's loopholes to essentially going through and having car ownership, because you pay less taxes and registration fees and all that other stuff. But Delaware has been that same place where everybody goes to incorporate. It's something that they have built, and it's like one of those things too. It's like, out of all places, right? Delaware is like one of literally the smallest state or whatever. And everyone goes there. They incorporate their business. This is literally what is driving that revenue. But it was kind of like, if you don't know, it's just kind of like a random place, right? You're like, why don't you just go into California or Texas or Nevada or other states, right? But with these Silicon Valley companies, a lot of especially the CEOs, they are all very well connected. And more importantly, when you go to like places like Y Combinator and you're doing you have incubators, all of these new startups that are going to be multi-billion-dollar, $100 billion companies, they're not going to be going to Delaware anymore. Everyone knows now who is pretty much, I hate to say it, the scum in the room now. No one's going to be going to Delaware to incorporate their business. I personally don't know if that's currently happening and they're seeing that drop off right now. We do know that some big companies have moved and are looking to move out of Delaware. But I would love to see if there's any stats on incorporations that are happening in Delaware since a lot of this stuff is going on. Because again, there's a couple of people on the planet like to like just not mess with, especially when something like this. Again, you know, however you may feel politically about this person, if they're the richest person in the world, this compensation plan was completely based on performance and hitting metrics that were not attainable in the next 10 years from literally what everyone thought. People were like, okay, Elon's kind of crazy. Why would you sign up for this package? Just look at the old newsreels. And so it's just really frustrating to see all this happening. And I really do hope that this appeal, as this process gets kicked off, that they just slam this down, that we move on, because and Delaware is going to learn their lesson at the end of the day. Like a lot of these people that end up, you know, trying to screw over, you know, great innovative companies, and let alone, you know, Elon ends up, as we're seeing now, what's happening with Elon, even in politics, we're seeing what's happening. Who's having the last laugh when people attack him? And so the same thing's going to happen with Delaware. Once this stuff, you know, once the gloves are off, as far as, you know, the decisions are made, because again, the shareholders came out and voted again 6 years later about the same thing. And so you cannot go against what the shareholders like. What's the point of me buying stock if I can't have a say in what my company is going to do? And you're telling me a judge is going to have you know, a say in that? But all I can say is Delaware, in my opinion, they're finished as far as being the leader for incorporations. Everyone's going to get a clue, and they're slowly moving out. It's already happening, and you're seeing it. I think it's Dropbox and Meta is considering it. So there's once you start seeing those behemoths move out, it's just, you know, you just got to put it on speed dial. And as new companies start up, they're going to be like, hey, where do we incorporate? Not Delaware. I'll tell you that right now.
Well, a lot of these new companies that start up, they end up having worked for some of these other companies like Meta and Tesla or whatever, and they end up realizing like, oh, okay, that was a problem. You know what I mean? They'll have that in their mind, and they'll know, well, for my business, I'm definitely not doing that. And so, yeah, it's like you say, it's just going to be, it's a recipe for a disaster, all because of one judge. That's crazy.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm glad that the governor's stepping in. He may be able to stop this, but the blood's already been spilled. It's just a matter of how bad is it going to get? Is he going to be able to step again? I don't know exactly all of his capabilities as a governor, obviously, than making noise, because I think
There's a new governor too.
yeah, and I knew Alexandra had gone into this, I think, on a rant with Herbert, but all I can say is like, you know, I don't know how much he can change the sinking Titanic at this point. All right, let's get into this. So Tesla has a sexy ride-hailing app. So it looks like Tesla app iOS. They reported, I'm thrilled to announce the very first lines of Robotaxi code are here. The first end-to-end implemented is a feedback screen that allows users to rate the cleanliness of the vehicle and upload photos. The end point is named Rides Feedback Upload. The future is coming. So we all know that I think it was Joe and Brian. You guys were talking about the Cybertruck production line, but we all know that Tesla is 10 steps, 100 steps ahead of all of us, even from what we know. We all know that they're probably working on the production line. Clearly now that this is like first signs of the code, but they're getting ready for this. This is like what makes Tesla everything. And well, again, now you have the robot, but this is what makes Tesla what it is. And what I bought into, what I love about this company is that it was not a car company. It's where I was able to see the future. And ever since I got involved in 2018, this is what I've been hoping for to happen. So I'm excited. This is not a joke anymore. This is not, as our friend Fred would say, you know, lies that have been happening for 8-9 years now, whatever he wants to say about that. But this is happening. It's going to be here. And I'm personally really excited about it. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think it's about time, and it's going to be really cool to see. I mean, I'm on FSD every day, so it's inevitable. I'm literally just sitting there. So it's going to be pretty awesome, especially once Summit happens for the Cybertruck and those type of things unfold. It's going to be really, really crazy.
I think it's insane that we're seeing it this early. I think it's good. It gives them time to test it across platforms, make sure it's stable and all that. And we don't know what kind of phones are being used by the employees testing it now. But I think we're going to see more and more deployments at Giga Texas within the Tesla factory site of robocabs between now and then. So yeah, I think it's early, but this tells me that they are absolutely serious about June.
Absolutely agree. Can't wait to see it. It is so exciting that we are approaching the launch of driverless rides in Teslas. Man, like for those of us who've been waiting for this day for so long, to actually see it come to pass this year is something that it's going to be an incredibly important date to remember because it marks a massive shift. The thing that's clear to, I think, most people is that Tesla's platform and their solution to this problem is so much more scalable than anyone else is even proposing at this point in time. And so once they are able to start offering those first rides, the distance from that point to them just trouncing any other player in the market in Robotaxi paid miles is very short. And we'll get to watch with rapt attention as they quickly overtake Waymo on their way to just being an absolute behemoth in changing. I mean, this is the dream that we've had for so long for Tesla, that transportation goes from vehicle ownership to pay by the mile electric autonomous transportation, basically, that costs us 10% or 5% of what we currently pay for the cars that we own today. And that's going to change so many things. And it really, it's been a long, arduous process. It'll be an overnight success that's only 10 years in the making, or really longer than 10 years. But that day, that first ride will be quite the milestone on that journey.
So, you guys, we keep forgetting that Waymo is the leader. Are they? Well, and I have people asking me, look, I've done some coverage of Chinese ADAS systems, and they say, are there companies in China who are ahead of Tesla on FSD, on autonomy? And the real answer is we don't know. We can't see behind the curtain. We don't know how much human involvement there is. It could be 1-to-1 for all we know for some of them. Now, I'm sure many of them are showing signs of a great technology on their autonomy. Waymo, a viewer of mine sent me a photo from Mesa, Arizona, the Magna facility there. Magna is a very large parts supplier, automotive manufacturer as well. They make the Toyota Supra, the BMW Z3, Z4, I forget, the G-Wagon. They made the Fisker Ocean. If you want cars made in low volume, they can do it. At Magna, they had a good 1,000 Waymos out there that were ready to get kitted up. Some of them had already been completed. And this is a photo from like a week and a half ago. Well, that means Waymo's going to have 1,000 more taxis this year, you guys. Right. How long does it take to make 1,000 cybercabs again? Remind me, because it's going to be like less than a day's production. So when Hans says that Tesla has the only scalable approach, that's correct. Hans is right. Others will follow, but they're not ready to because they don't have the tech, because they don't have anything that can make it scale. And Waymo's next gen car is a Zeekr. How are you going to get that into the country without 100% tariff? Zeekr's not going to build a factory just to make 20, 30,000 of their robo vans, of whatever they want to call it. So it's Waymo's next big step is a terrible, terrible idea from many perspectives. So yeah, so I agree with Hans.
just a little bit. But yeah, no, I think I think again with Waymo, as you were saying, I think what they're doing good work. I think I'm glad that we have other people in the mix. But yeah, I mean their LiDAR system, again, by the time they're buying a Jaguar I-Pace and then throwing these on top of it, even if they do this in China, the cost is a lot versus being able to have me as an owner. Let's say potentially I just wanted to buy a Cybercab to make me money. I can go ahead and buy that, but that's a one-time fee that is now I can throw into the market every single time and I own it. It's the same thing with but with Waymo, you have to go and you have to spend all this capital, and most of these people that are going to be buying it, it's going to be fleets. It's not going to be average, I hate to say this, Joes doing that. And but just it's going to be one of those things where with Tesla, you can scale it. And I think Sawyer put out a post the other day too about it. Tesla's not going to need the Uber app, right? And I think that's where Uber is they really need to figure out how they can continue to exist as a business, as Tesla comes on. Again, it's all going to kind of depend on the market share. Like if you think of like 100 rides, how many are going to be Tesla? But over time, we know that with Tesla, it's just going to grow. So I think the CEO said that they have like 150,000 Tesla Uber drivers right now. But again, I just don't see Tesla wanting to use the Uber app, but who knows? It's possible depending on how they want to scale. Because yeah, they're going to have 150,000 Uber drivers that they could technically turn on, but Tesla does not need Uber in this situation, and Tesla is building the full stack, which is so they're building the Waymo and the Turo and the Uber all in one, right? And Airbnb, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
So I think it's
go ahead, Joe.
I was going to say real quick, I think it's interesting that you say that, because I don't think it's going to be a light switch. I think they're going to have to spool up. They're going to have to test it, you know what I mean? Like after the ramp up. And so I think they could utilize Uber in the meantime, in the interim, for that like year or whatever it's going to be for testing. I don't know what you're going to say, Brian.
Oh, different things. Uber would also be a good way to get fresh capital in, because Uber would be buying the vehicles. And if that's the case, they can they can pay to have their own cleaning depots. But I agree that, the users are not the hard part. The app is not the hard part. If you look at just, I saw people saying, oh, they should integrate it into X. Well, why? There's already a Tesla app integrated into that. That makes more sense, especially for the early days. And how many people have the Tesla app? Well, anyone who wants it is the short answer, but everyone who owns a Tesla, anyone who owns another EV but has access to the supercharger network surely has the app. They can't use the network otherwise. Anyone who's been added as a second driver on someone else's car, there's a huge, huge amount of customers. And my phone knows when I'm at the airport and now in a new city at an airport. It could say, welcome to Phoenix. Would you like to get a Cybercab to pick you up? And there you go. You've got all the data, everything you need. I don't think it's going to end up being, as insanely cheap as some people do, in large part because it doesn't have to be that cheap. You can make it, even the same price as other ride shares means you can capture all those rideshare customers, because it's probably a better experience. It definitely doesn't have the expectation of a tip. And then as you get lower from there, you start reaching into new markets where people would take it out of convenience, where people would, maybe their car's in the shop, they take the Robotaxi for a week and realize, do I really want to put $2,000 into my old beater or buy a new car? Why don't I just do this instead? And that may take a whole generation for everyone to get on board, but it's going to happen.
Agreed.
100%.
The thing that I would do if I was in Uber's position right now, which doesn't sound at all like what they're planning to do based on what I've heard from Travis on, the All In podcast the other day, who's the founder and no longer at the company, but even the comments of their current CEO, is I would be on the phone with Tesla to buy up like the first 500,000 cyber cabs that they are willing to sell to external customers.
Yeah.
And I would prepay for every single one of those cars. Like that is a deal that is a complete win-win for both Uber and for Tesla. I think it helps to secure the future for both companies, and then they'll have to figure out, did those cyber cabs get to operate on Uber's network or not? But that's something is what I would be pursuing now. Maybe they are pursuing something like that. They certainly wouldn't be talking about it in public if they were.
Right.
But it doesn't seem like, from the conversations that I've heard from management or investors, Brad Gerstner, Jason Calacanis, these people are all like early investors who are close to the company, and the comments that they make don't even hint at something like this being a possibility either. So it would shock me if something like that were to happen, but I think that's the best move that Uber has available to them at this moment.
Yeah.
Joe,
Yay. So we've been doing a lot of energy talk, and I think a lot of us here, I mean, we realize like the powerhouse that Tesla Energy is, but I mean, this is really cool. They got like 1,500 Powerwalls were produced in 24-hour continuous shift, freaking in Nevada. And this is, I mean, just after doing like 3 months earlier, they did 1,000 in a single day. So they are crushing it. And it's, I mean, I know that. So next month, March 8th, we're having our 8-year anniversary for the NorCal Reno Club, and we're going to have it at the Reno Tesla showroom. And I talked to Z; he's going to be there. So we're probably going to, film something or whatever. But man, this is like just good news all around. What do you guys think? I mean, Tesla Energy is obviously the sleeping giant. They're creating so much money for the bottom line. It is just unfathomable at this point. But
So which batteries go into a Powerwall? They like to use the LFP because you've got weight is not an issue. Energy density is fine for LFP in a stationary application, and LFP batteries can be cheaper. Well, now we've got these 100% import tariffs on them. So what is the rate limiting factor? Is it that we have to eat some margin, or not get enough cells, or what are they doing? And I believe the answer is, we know they bought LFP production equipment from CATL more than 6 months ago. It was probably a year ago now. And that CATL's engineers were out there over the summer helping them install and configure it so it would run correctly. It is very possible that they are already manufacturing LFP batteries in Nevada that are going into those Powerwalls. And if the price isn't already down to where it needs to be, it will be soon as they continue to ramp. And I think that's a very strong possibility to keep the margins up.
So they bought CATL equipment, you were saying?
Yes, they bought the manufacturing equipment to make CATL LFPs themselves. Now, obviously, they wouldn't be CATL cells. There would be some tweaks to it, but it's the equipment that was being used in China. China overbuilt their battery supply capacity, and manufacturers like CATL realized we got too much. And, they're always on to the next big thing anyway. They are a battery manufacturer. We've got some old equipment we're not using. We will sell it. And Tesla bought it. It went to Nevada.
That's
just
crazy,
to
man.
satisfy my nerd curiosity. Are those going to be prismatic cells then that are in those Powerwalls?
Yes, they will not be pouches. They will not be cylinders. They're going to be the regular prismatic, not blade, but I mean, blades are kind of prismatic. So yes, they will not be taking the 4680 form factor.
Yeah, I don't think the 4680 form factor works for stationary storage. I mean, it's an overkill for what you need for that type of application, is what it seems like. And I learned that yesterday when we were at the Megapack factory. They were saying that, like, yeah, they're not they're using 4680s in the
they don't.
Megapacks.
The beauty of the 4680 is it is a structure of its own. It is a two-purpose form factor, and you don't need the second purpose in stationary. So yeah, it doesn't make sense.
Joe, what was the battery that they said that is in the mega pack is
The-
lithium.
Yeah, the CATL LFP prismatic
Okay.
cells.
That's what I figured.
Yeah, that's
'cause
what's
I
in
knew it
the
wasn't
what's in the mega
same.
pack.
Yeah.
And they have more cycle life. You'll get an extra 50% to 100% longer lifespan out of LFP on a cycle life basis than you would from a nickel, manganese, cobalt chemistry.
Yeah,
So-
they talked about that. They talked about the warranty and all of that, and it's pretty crazy.
What is the warranty?
20 years.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean, if they're warranting it for 20 years, then it's good for a lot longer.
Right. It's not going to die at 20 years and a half a year. People love to say that, oh, well, your Tesla has got a warranty to 100,000 miles. So great. At 102, you're going to have to replace it. Buddy, if half of them failed at 102, the other half would fail at 98. So think it through. Understand any amount of probability.
Yeah, we'll be releasing a video about it. And Tesla is releasing Tesla, the Tesla Megapack channel. If you check out their handle on X, they've been releasing content as well. But we all know that the energy business, the Megapack, is a sleeping giant. They're producing their margins are a lot better than the auto industry as well. So looking forward to kind of sharing that and just sharing the insights, because we were able to see the whole line inside, specifically just going from the start all the way to the end. Yeah. And they actually don't have they're pretty much there's a lot of demand. They're sold out for a long time. And so it's just one of those things where it's like they're literally, once they're finished, they're going to the shipyard, which is literally outside. They may sit there a little bit because, again, these are huge 85,000 pound batteries. So it may look like they're sitting there, but waiting to be sold, but they're sold. So, but yeah, so it was a lot of insights. All right. So kind of going back to the Robotaxi discussion, again, we've talked a little bit about how Google and Tesla are kind of like the leaders here. And you can kind of just see ARK Investment put out a couple of things just showcasing, after more than a decade, most automakers have dropped out of the autonomy race except two. And one of them is not even an automotive company, right? Which is literally Google. And they're just creating the system that literally sits on top of the car. But it is crazy. I mean, again, you talk about Volvo, Audi, Mercedes, just all of them have dropped out, right? And so it's one of those things that Tesla and Waymo are going to be the leaders, and they're going to be the ones that are going to bring autonomy to the roads, especially at least here in the US. So pretty crazy to see this. But this is just kind of, again, a reminder of, a lot of fake promises and not delivering.
Well, if you're one of those companies, you have to say, are we willing to spend the money that Tesla has spent? The answer is maybe. I mean, we have money, we could do that. Do we have engineers as bright as the ones at Tesla? For years, they could argue, yeah, we could get them. But then after Autonomy Day, I think it was abundantly clear that, no, we're doing something different here. Actually, I guess it was AI Day. And if your engineers are not as good as Tesla's, you'll never catch up. And then the last part is, where on earth are we going to get the data? BYD made their big move this week. Almost all their cars will now have the full sensor suite. And that's not because they're kind and loving and generous. It's because they want to gather their data so they can train their network. Tesla's lead is pretty insurmountable, at least in the US and European markets, where China's systems are unlikely to be permitted to operate.
Yeah,
what year was it that Tesla started putting cameras in all the cars? Wasn't it 2014?
I don't know.
So 2014 was the beginning of the when they did. That was a company that they no longer use, but
Mobileye.
Yeah. But since then they've kept it in all the vehicles, whether you're using it or not. Tesla's just spent that money, put it in all the vehicles going forward, and and they've always had it. So yeah, that was a huge expense, and it's still crazy to think how much they were profiting on that vehicle by putting thousands of dollars of compute in a vehicle that most aren't using. I don't even know what the take rate is, but it's not 50%. It's definitely not 30%. So I think it's like it's pretty. That was a gamble, and of course, as we see, it's paying off. But to go back to what ARK Invest highlighted, and what Brian was kind of hinting at, was that like all these companies, well, John actually made these promises and put out all this information of what they were going to do, and made all these promises, and people invested millions of dollars into their promises, and nothing happened because of it. And yet, like, people are always screaming that Teslas are fraud and all this stuff, and then you have like these companies that are actually frauding their investors that nobody's even taken to court or whatever. Yet here we are dealing with Delaware and a payout package of a guy who did the impossible. It's pretty wild.
The big difference is that Tesla's been selling. It'll be FSD very, very soon if you buy it now, and do buy it because the price is going to go up. While others have said, hopefully it'll happen during the period for which you own it. Because like with Ford, if you buy Blue Cruise, you don't own Blue Cruise. You have to subscribe to Blue Cruise on top of the fact that you had to buy a top trim model and then add the feature. Then you get it for free for like 2 or 3 years, and then you have to start paying. So it is a different approach. I can understand the resentment from people who bought early. But yeah, I get it both ways.
Yeah, and the majority of people, that's the thing. Most people will not remember a lot of the history that Tesla has gone through, and more importantly, all of these companies that came to CES to showcase their latest prototype, or made these big announcements like Nikola did back in the day about, autonomy and future vehicles and stuff. But it's just like, people have a short-term memory. And so it's good for people like us who follow, that we can remind people like, no, go back, check the news from like 2018, 2019, look up these companies, see what they were putting out. And now what are they doing? Nothing. They're literally buying Tesla software, or maybe Waymo, whatever company software, and putting it in their vehicles. Because even Elon has said that they're not going to send them this fat diagram. They're going to be like, here's a Model 3, go tear it down, look at how the system's set up, and then rebuild that in your own way and figure out. But again, let's say you even decided to do that. How long do you think it's going to take these legacy companies to tear it down, let alone then build something that will be able to use the system? You're still talking a couple of years, in my opinion, once they decide that, unless they're already working on it. Again, there might be rumors that Ford is potentially, getting into the mix with licensing, but if they're not tearing down a Model 3 right now, they're continuing to fall behind. And again, knowing them, they're probably not tearing one down.
I think they're tearing them down. I know that when Tesla released the Model S, that Ford bought one to tear down in their studio in Michigan. And when they accidentally fried the battery, they called for warranty. They're like, yeah, we need to bring this in and get our battery fixed. And Tesla sent a mobile tech right into the studio at Ford to fix it right there on the floor. And they're like, this is really awkward, isn't it? And the tech is like, nah, it's fine. But you're right that it would take, I think figuring out how to make it work with their car is going to take them longer than figuring out how to put it in their car. But you're right, it is absolutely years at a minimum.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Joe, this one's to you, man.
Does anybody know about power that's happening with the Megapacks?
Never heard about that.
Yeah, no, true story. So so it's 150 megawatts of Tesla Megapacks have added to the Calpine battery system at Geysers Lake County, California. Never been there. These sites leverage existing grid connections from repurposing geothermal facilities. And I think that alone is something that people don't think about, is like, you have this energy storage, but you have like the thermal energy, you have like freaking wind and solar, and I mean, you can store this energy to disperse at any time, and that's been, I think, a lot of the prowess of this company, of the mega pack anyway, is for Tesla, is that utilities and other facilities are realizing like the value in that, of what this could do for them, and how beneficial it is in the end game.
Yeah, it's pretty wild, man. All right, the Cybertruck gets magnetic wraps that can let you change the color in minutes just for $2,000. So, as we know, the Cybertruck is going to go down as probably one of the most, like, out of 100 sold, how many of them are wrapped? It's going to go down as one of the most wrapped vehicles. And so, I know, shout out to Mirrored Tesla or Mirrored Cybertruck. You can actually even take your Cybertruck and polish it, and literally it becomes a mirror. But people are always finding creative ways to stand out, and having a magnetic wrap is one of them.
Yeah, that's a first. Like, yeah, it's pretty well. There's a video accompanying it. I saw the video, and it since it rolls out, which I think would have been smarter to have it roll the other way, because they had to tape the ends and let the magnet let the magnet take hold before it actually stayed in place. So I thought that was just, but they got it to where it's good at freeway speeds, and it's pretty awesome.
All right, Joe's, this one's to you, man.
Yeah, this is pretty crazy. So there's a company called Catstrap that also happens to be making the freaking cables for some of these Tesla superchargers. I don't know how this is going to roll out, or if it's going to be everywhere. I imagine it's probably just going to be in the disadvantaged areas that they've been having problems at. But they call it the die fender. Yeah. But here it is. When you cut into it, it releases this die, because all the contents are under pressure, as in one of the photos it's telling you. I don't know how malleable this cable is. I mean, people are probably using it anyway. I mean, still, it doesn't seem like it's that difficult to manage, but they got it on the V4 cabinets. And so when people are trying to cut it, it's just going to disperse a lot of die. I saw one of the comments was like, well, what about if you're parked there? Well, if you're parked there, then somebody's probably not going to try and cut the cable that's it's in your vehicle and try and steal the wire right there. So I think you're okay in that instance. But yeah, I thought it was pretty cool. I don't know how they're going to roll this out or what, but I thought it was really, really neat that they're even doing it.
Yeah, some of these cities where, like, I would say definitely, like, more populated cities, they definitely need to roll it out. Even some of these rural areas too. But I think people have they want to make statements, and next thing you know, they'll go. I think Oakland had an issue where someone went and cut like 10 cables. I mean, it's just, it's really a disservice to the owners, and really, the public when these things are taken down. And now we know that more than just Tesla owners can go to these places now too, right? So it's a lot of other electric vehicles.
And the thing is, I assume they're using the same kind of die you would see with the ink pack at a bank. I worked at a bank in the 90s. Before the turn of the century, Hans, it was a different time. And the die packs, those are indelible ink. If you find someone who robbed a bank 2 weeks ago, they're still purple. So I think it would be a very effective deterrent, but it also dyes the whole thing. They were saying that they're working on literally imprinting Tesla's logo, "Do not purchase this," onto the copper itself, so that recyclers know this has been stolen. And if you want to buy it, you're going to go to jail.
All All right. So I know the past couple weeks we haven't been able to get into the upbeat, and I know Joe spends the majority of his time on this specific section. The rest doesn't really matter. This is the most important one. But I thought, we should get into this today. All right. So we're gonna throw this first one to Hans. Car market to shrink thanks to demographics. Elon was right about birth rates.
I mean, I think that's kind of the last factor that I would be worried about as far as a shrinking car market. So,
Agree completely.
If we're moving to Robotaxi rides, this is kind of water under the bridge. Everything's going away anyways. It's a whole new thing. There's going to be way more miles that are driven. It's just going to be in a different form factor.
Yeah, good point, Hans. Nice.
And they're suggesting a 20% reduction in the auto market in 5 years because of demographic shifts. Come on.
All right, Brian, Model 3 cheaper than a Corolla.
I had to explain this to a guy at Costco a while back. They are cheaper. It's the cost up front. Well, yeah, but aren't they still like 40 grand? Well, go into inventory. You might find one under 40 grand. And it's still a great car. It still has the best sound system you've ever had. And then you've got your federal credit, and then you might have a state credit on top of that. And then you get into the actual cost of ownership, the lifetime cost of ownership. I don't know many people who have done anything to their cars other than tires and windshield wiper fluid. And your tires do not wear out faster if you drive it like a normal car. If you've got a lead foot, you're going to burn through tires. And if you don't believe me, check out the forums for Hellcat owners. They all complain. Everybody who first gets one, why do I go through tires every 10,000 miles? Sonny, you got to cool your jets. So it is
literally,
yeah, cool, easy turbo. You gotta simmer down.
Yeah,
hey, and if you use Joe's referral code, you might get an extra $2,500 off on top of that on Model 3s right now.
It's a crazy deal.
Joe Valentine.
Valentine's.
All right, Joe, Elon talks military strategy.
This was pretty awesome. So apparently this was filmed like months ago and released recently, but it was Elon talking to a room of military folks and being questioned by this general here. It's a really good video. If you haven't watched it, they talk about what Hans has been very vocal about, and it is just, we really got to understand like drone warfare. We really got to understand where we're losing and what's inevitable to come, and these things that we really need to be aware of. And it seemed like you would think he'd be preaching to the choir at that point, but it seemed like he was giving them information that they weren't aware of, and it was a pretty good video.
Exactly. All right, Hans, this one's to you. Figure AI robot walks out on deal.
Well, I mean, people don't end up liking to do business with Sam Altman over the long term. Shocking. I don't know why that could possibly be the case. And, I think Figure's got a hard road ahead of them, but the rumors are that, OpenAI has their own in-house humanoid robot project, and that Figure AI realized that OpenAI was using them to gather data that they will then use in their own project. So they didn't want to help their competitors. At least that's the rumor. I personally wouldn't invest in either of those companies, so I'll let them fight it out.
All right, Brian, we'll kick this one to you. Portugal get Powerwall 3.
Because they're making more Powerwalls now than ever, that means for the longest time, we really didn't want any more business because the backlog was infinite. Now that you're making 1,500 a day, you can finally expand to new markets. Portugal has quite a bit of sunny days. They've got good solar. What do you want with your good solar? A power wall. So this is a very small market, but keep going, keep expanding into new markets. This is just the most recent one. It won't be the last.
That's cool, actually. Like I think the Powerwall 3 is it being a small form factor and more battery power out of it is one of the cool things about it.
Agreed. All right, so we're gonna wrap up. A couple of quick things. Joe has launched a new YouTube channel called TOSV Off Grid. You can see his face there with a couple of videos, kind of behind the scenes. Well, it's just so it's a lot of unboxings behind the scenes. Joe went to the Boxable in Las Vegas with Steven, and some more vlogs going on there. If you don't know, we announced Steve Jurvetson as one of our keynote speakers. He's potentially I mean, I've been seeing some comments. People have been, talking him up, and we already knew this is partially why we asked him, but he's going to go down as one of the best investors potentially of all time. He's been involved in a lot of things from early days of like Skype, Hotmail to obviously XAI, SpaceX, Tesla. Pretty much a lot of Elon companies. He's known Elon for 28 years and has done a lot of big deals. So he's going to be dropping some amazing dimes along with Lars Morovi, who's the other keynote speaker. He's the lead vehicle engineer at Tesla. And so you can hear them. And then obviously too, Jay Leno's YouTube video is out as well. But we also got to sit down with the vehicle engineer and program manager of the Model Y. So make sure you go and check out that video. And then the last thing is, if you haven't, go to xtakeover.com, July 26th, San Francisco Bay Area. We are lighting up, and we finally have brought home our big event of the year to the Bay Area. So it's going to be, if you're traveling from outside of, the San Francisco Bay Area, we've made this event even easier to get to. So mark your calendars. We have more big announcements coming, but we would love to see you. And again, more announcements coming over time. But thank you again to Hans, Joe Valentine, and Brian FutureAza for all of your wonderful knowledge. We will not be here next week because I will be at the Tesla Takeover Asia event. So check out our X handle. We'll be covering you live from the handle. But so I will not be here, but we will catch you in 2 weeks from now. But please give Hans and Brian a follow. Go check out their YouTube channels. Brian's putting out about 15 videos a week. Hans is probably at 30 at this point. I don't even know. I lost count. But if you check out Farzad's channel as well, he's in the mix there. And then Joe as well, SJV Tesla on X and other handles. So please patronize them. Use their referral codes. It's on YouTube as well in the description. Their channels are tagged there, or their handles are tagged. So please patronize them for their time. So we will catch you all next week, or 2 weeks from now. Sorry.